Well, I mean, nobody's getting oranges. The orange grove's burned.
There were 2 trees left.
And he was just like, Victor, come on.
Hey, if you want oranges that bad, I know where there's a couple trees.
And Jeannie.
Yeah.
Another thing that happens over the course of the next few weeks is...
We're skipping ahead weeks.
Well, we're gonna merge it all together.
Okay.
I don't want to go through 6 weeks of game time one day at a time.
Yeah, we had stuff for the next morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeannie. Trieste receives a letter from her cousin, Abernathy. Abernathy is 16 years old. He's from a lesser branch of her house, but her house is one of the great houses of the Republic, so still fairly prestigious. And she's invited him to come to Brennanine and meet you. She describes Abernathy as being well-read and very handsome, but when you press her on the subject, you also find out that he has an enormous hook nose.
Okay.
And that's all the information you get about Cousin Abernathy until he arrives.
Anyone else getting flashbacks to the second season of Bad Gretzko right now?
I don't know what that is.
Okay. It's on Netflix.
Everything's on Netflix.
And it's anime, so you won't watch it.
Ugh.
It's adult Hello Kitty.
Oh, okay. I've seen that. Yeah, it keeps recommending it to me, but every time I look at it, it looks like the dumbest thing ever. Well, second dumbest thing, because the new season of Big Mouth just came out. What are our morning actions?
That's true.
I think we need to call Ruby and explain what the hell's going on.
So you're meeting with Ruby in the morning over breakfast or after breakfast?
I think this needs to be a P1.
Yeah, I think over breakfast.
Yeah.
Like, we have the info now. There's no reason to hold off.
Yeah.
So what do you tell her?
Well, I wasn't there during the fight, so you guys are gonna have to cover that.
Well, we went down to investigate the hole again, and there was a fire monster down there, and he almost killed me. Can you pass the butter, please?
That's a little bit...
That is not how I would have opened
That's
that
abbreviated. So
That's
ran
really...
into, from what my research has discovered, that we ran into a member of a cult that was once called the Hand of Fire that was active in this city maybe 100 years ago, who had very heretical beliefs that were much older than some of the more customary ones. And they were able to conjure fire, and I think that someone in the city is trying to resurrect said cult. Or at least...
On the good note, if we find out who these people are, we can take their fire artifacts. Apparently they got some ancient elven stuff that might be used.
And they're trying to resurrect this cult in our basement.
Seems that way.
At least in a tunnel connected to our basement.
Are you meeting Ruby alone, or have you brought anyone else in on this meeting?
Probably Nigel.
You want Nigel? Want Nigel there as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was
That's
over
big
breakfast.
stuff.
It's like whoever shows up at breakfast.
Oh, okay, you're just talking at the open table then. Okay, so Orson is there as well as the children.
Just
We don't
casual
need
breakfast, I would say.
to tell the kids about this. The kids don't need to hear that there's a fire monster in the basement.
Then you
I
can't.
mean, yes,
do it
they
over
do.
breakfast.
They might go into that basement.
It's important that everybody knows about the fire monsters in the basement.
Now, I was under the impression that Jeannie had left instruction with the man-at-arms to not allow the children down the hole.
Right.
Yeah,
yes.
and that works great with us, because we were left all sorts of instructions as kids.
Like, yeah, no, they're not allowed down there, but that doesn't mean they're not going to go down there. They're children.
Better they be...
Also why I installed a second door.
Nigel tells you he doesn't know anything about this Hand of Fire, but he knows a thing or two about fire magic. Because one of his old adventuring friends is actually serving as high tradesman right now in Brennanine.
Mm-hmm.
A man named Hrilgar. He says he'll have a meeting with Hrilgar later today and see if he knows anything about rogue pyromancers in the city. And just the way he says rogue pyromancers while swizzling his mustache between his finger and thumb, you can tell he's thinking of more wistful days.
I never did get the butter. Can somebody please pass me the butter?
Oh, yeah, sure. Here you go. Victor will pass the butter.
Thank you.
Ruby asks, her immediate interest is if there's any. Well, no, you guys had told her where the cave leads. She asks you, what about this bookseller? The cave on the opening on the other end of this cave.
I've paid her 2 visits, but
The bookseller that was the people to talk to today. It was a little late last night when we got back.
My theory on the bookseller is one of two things. Either she is the most oblivious woman in the world, or she is a really good actor.
Oh, she's totally part of this cult.
I've paid her 2 visits, but I intend to have a third with some more pointed questions now that I know more of what's going on.
Can we just kidnap her and bring her back over onto the grounds and then ask her some pointed questions?
You ask that openly at the table?
Jeannie, Jeannie, you know what? You still, your head, you need to come with me, okay? Evie just gently lifts Jeannie up from the table and starts walking her back upstairs.
Ruby holds up her hand and says, wait a minute.
If we had razor wire, I'd be for it, but...
What?
So why can't we do that?
Yeah,
This woman obviously knows something. It'd be better to question her on our territory than in her shop.
So,
Ekon's been there twice and has learned nothing.
Ruby, the problem is that if anybody sees us take her or finds out that she was here, if she's able to escape and identify where she was, that's going to look really bad for us. And I don't think that's something you want to deal with.
We just take her through the cave and up through the...
Ruby shrugs, looking at Victor's like, there's a cave connecting our basement with her shop. How is anybody going to see you?
All right, we'll drag her in the cave and talk to her. That's fine.
She nods. Says, bring her before me. I would question her.
So,
meet us in the cave.
I have a lot of questions about this.
The question was posited previously, who is the evil twin? And I think I want it to be Jeannie.
Ruby squares her shoulders, threads her fingers together. So by all means, Evie, let us hear your objections.
Okay, because for the last couple weeks, you have been very concerned with the numerous improprieties that have come down towards our house. Should we not be taking more concern to ensure that we are not inviting more scandal by...
Evie.
Only a scandal if we get caught.
Evie, listen. Ruby actually has a good point. All we have to do is go into the cave under the bookseller store, open up the door, drag her into that cave. We don't take her into our side. We don't take her on our property line. We certainly don't take her up the hole into our property.
Oh, no. Ruby wants you to bring her up into your basement so she can question her. Ruby wants to see this woman.
Meet us in the cave,
Ruby. Probably we should send the guards away, Ruby, so that they're not witnessed. No witnesses.
She says she'll leave the particulars to you. Just she wants this done today.
We can do it. My suggestion is that.
But by all means, little sister, none of us would like to act before we've heard your dissent. And she gives you the floor to lay out all of your concerns.
You talking to me?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we are dealing with potentially a dangerous cult with very powerful magic. Should we not be taking measures to ensure that the proper authorities are informed so that if some sort of battle were to break out in the city, it would not fall on House Veritas as being responsible, that we are not accused of consorting with unholy powers, of kidnapping booksellers who we can't necessarily prove are connected with any sort of conspiracy. I feel that we are acting a little hastily.
Jeannie, if Ekon had not been with you, would you have survived your encounter with this creature?
I don't know. I was unconscious. So probably not.
She nods and she says, and while I cherish your input, little sister, speaking to Evie again, I have other siblings to be concerned about. They're very young. You may have met them. And she motions to the end of the table where you have a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old sibling, and a 10-year-old cousin eating with the proper spoon and fork. If an existential danger exists to them, I would like to know the state of it before taking it to whatever authorities you feel should handle this situation.
Religious check before, because I don't want to get be stripped of all title and wealth and have my face branded.
Right.
Is kidnapping one of the 13 laws? Like, does that fall under the 13 laws? Can we?
This is one of those things that can be argued either way.
Okay.
Because, kidnapping somebody and dragging them for questioning, probably very frowned upon. And is probably against the letter of the law. But if nobody knows you've done it, and you're right, and she's actually a member of this dangerous cult, then that changes all of the optics of the situation. Even if you're wrong and she doesn't know anything, you just put her back in her shop and tell her don't breathe a word of this to anyone, the chances that she would are very slim.
So here's my problem.
Mm-hmm.
Destil.
Yes?
You are Ekon's kind of religiously intense. So is this a
Yes.
problem with Ekon? That's all I'm wondering.
Ekon has made no indication whether or not it's a problem, much like the last time we talked with Ruby.
Okay.
Ruby says, don't put her head in the water. Don't put an iron brand to her flesh. Just bring her to me so I can ask her some questions.
Yeah.
And the whole time, Nigel's just been eating his breakfast, just watching the situation. He doesn't seem to have any issue with this at all. He would have spoken up if he had.
We do not need to kidnap her for that. We could simply invite her to the manor. We could tell her that the books that we traded with her were quite valuable, and we'd love to have her as an honored guest for lunch.
And then people will know that an invitation was offered, and that she arrived in our manor by the front door.
Yeah, we don't want her publicly in the manor, Victor says as he looks up from a bite of sausage.
And then Nigel chimes in and says, and then later, when we find out that these rogue pyromancers indeed have librarians on their payroll doing their bidding, and that we've invited them to the house.
Now, through the basement is the best way. My only concern is I would prefer Ruby come to the cave as opposed to us take her onto the property.
She'll go down into your basement, that's fine. She's
the basement.
been down there before. Like, you guys didn't hire a man-at-arms onto her grounds, and she didn't go down to vet him. Like, she knows everything that's going on.
Yeah, no, I want Ruby to come to the cave so that we don't have to drag this potential fire elemental cultist onto our property and have our buildings burned down.
Ruby's okay with that. Yeah, she can climb a ladder.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, Ruby, I think you should climb down to the cave, and we can talk to her there, as opposed to actually bring her up.
What are the chances? Nigel points this out. He slams his fist down on the table again. There may be more rogue pyromancers down there even now.
You should come with us, Nigel.
Ruby immediately puts the kibosh on that by reminding him he has preparatory work to do for the speaker's table coming up.
But Ruby, Nigel needs to have some fun. His life can't be all paperwork.
She inquires what part of this situation you think is the most fun.
Where to start?
Is it the part where I almost burned to death?
That was enjoyable. I think, personally...
That was enjoyable, Ruby says. She's looking very angry now.
Ruby reaches over and slaps Victor in the back of the head. Just dope slap.
Listen, we have potentially uncovered a carousel using ancient elven magic. How could I and Nigel not have our eyes brighten at this concept?
She holds up her hand and says, let's ensure the security of our person first, before we start getting lofty ideas about tapping into ancient elven magics or anything of the sort.
And Ekon will somewhat dramatically stand up from the table, like putting his food down. He'll just look at Ruby. I think your counsel is actually quite wise here. I would insist on going along to make sure she's not incidentally harmed.
She says she hasn't seen a reason all five of you shouldn't go. That way, if there is another one of these creatures down there, you've dealt with one, you can deal with another one. If the situation has changed, she trusts you to think on your feet and handle it. And if the situation hasn't changed, she doesn't see any reason why you can't secure the shop from your end and bring her this library.
Ekon will nod and head back to his room to get his stuff.
Is anybody not going?
Evie is just staring, sitting at the table, staring aghast. Like, I'm the rogue, and I'm like, what the fuck?
You're also chaotic. You're also like, chaotic good. You're
I'm the rogue, and let's do it.
like.
So Evie's going, but only under protests.
Just for the record, this is a really bad idea.
Evie, actually, if you don't want to be part of this, there is something you could do that would be incredibly useful.
What's that?
While we have the bookseller, if you can go into the shop and try to find anything in her book collection related to ancient religions or fire beasts or elven relics or anything that might associate her, any sort of literature, the sort of anti-church or super pro-church.
Yeah, it'd be super orthodox, about 100 years old.
Well, we don't want anybody to go in the front door because then that would be.
Well, no, we're pulling her down through the basement, so Evie.
So we'll clear the tunnel. We'll bring the bookseller back to the base of the tunnel. Ruby can come down, and while we're doing that, Evie can toss the.
I mean, I can do that, but we're still kidnapping someone.
But you'll have.
If she's working for a cult,
We don't know. That's
and if she's not working for a cult, she's obviously covering up for them. And we can hopefully find a way to get her to admit as such and not put herself in any more harm. But she's obviously in harm's way if she keeps allowing people like that into her base.
Not just that, but if she does turn into a giant fire elemental and kill us, at least one of us will still live with evidence.
I mean, finding evidence is absolutely what Evie wants to do in this situation. So I'm on board with like tossing the store, but the math on this situation does not pan out. Why is Ruby suddenly like, we're going to break the law like crazy? That has been the exact opposite of everything else that she has said since day one.
Is that actually against the law?
Maybe Ruby has finally realized how the city works.
Is it actually? That's a legitimate question.
We're nobles and she's a commoner. I hate to say it because it's not the way things should work, but it's probably not illegal.
The letter of the law, as far as like being actionable. If a person takes another person against their will, that's not only against the law, it's one of the 13 edicts passed down by the church. One of the 13 what's considered a grievous sin by the church. Obviously, the real world is a lot more complicated than that, because Ekon is right. You take this common librarian woman, she doesn't have wealth or contacts in the city. If anybody actually gets wind of it, it's your word against hers, and your word is just worth way, way more.
And worst case scenario, we could always remove her as a problem.
I mean, if she's not, worst case scenario is she's innocent.
Glaring 2 points into your skull when you say that.
Worst case scenario is we just give her some money and send her back on her way. And what?
That's what you thought I meant kill her? No.
Ekon.
Smile slyly to Ekon as he says this.
I mean, until now, Evie has merely disagreed with Ruby, but now Ruby is actually ordering us to do something that feels like it is not the right thing to do.
I have to disagree. I think this is the absolute perfect thing to do in this situation. The more I think about it, the more we discuss it, I think this is the way.
Victor, you are my cousin, and I love you, but I have to admit, these last couple weeks, you have not demonstrated the most sound judgment of the people in this household.
I mean, it's not like there are oranges involved.
So I hear that Edmont hasn't chimed in on the subject. How does Ekon feel about, or Edmont feel about, kidnapping this bookseller?
Yeah, no, it's like because everybody's been talking a mile a minute, and I'm like, word edgewise, kind of. I want to catch up behind Ekon, and when he's gone to his room to collect his things, and he says, "Do you condone this?"
I'd prefer to talk to her alone, but there's no way we'll convince everyone of that. Unless you want to head to the bookseller right now before anyone else has a chance to break in there and kidnap her. Again, I don't.
That is
I
the-
will be
that is-
involved in at least in part to make sure that they don't bring any undue harm to her, and hopefully the questioning can be guided in such a way that if she has inadvertently abided by these fire cultists, we can provide her some protection.
I should hope that you could trust me, your own brother, to handle that kind of a situation.
Of course I can.
I'm not
why wouldn't I
incapable.
also would I say that?
Is Ruby
I'm not
down here
incapable.
with us?
Well, right now it's Ekon and Edmont talking on their own up
Okay.
on the side.
I'm not incapable, you know.
No, quite the opposite.
All right, just
What do you have a problem with me going along with this? It's not like I can pretend that I didn't hear what was being said at breakfast.
I just you know what our parents are like.
Yeah.
I'm just
But fortunately, older brother, we are several hundred miles from our parents right now.
Ekon or Edmont doesn't look very happy at that, but all he says is very well, brother. Follow your lead for now.
So the plan is the 5 of you are going to go through the cave up into the bookseller, break in through the secret door there, take her back into the cave to speak with Ruby, while Evie stays in the bookshop and looks for incriminating evidence. Do I have that right?
Should we bring the guards with us?
No, it should be dismissed for lunch.
All right, so just us. We don't want anybody else from the family coming. If there's a fire elemental, it's going to be a repeat
Us and Ruby.
of the other day.
Okay. So when you go down into the cave, you find it
Before we head down there, I would like to cast Detect Good and Evil, and then be concentrating on it.
It doesn't pick up anything. The cave is empty
Yeah.
when you get down there.
It's detect stuff, so you know.
Detect stuff.
Detect all the stuff. And yeah, just like before, you come down through the southwestern opening of the cave. There's the passage narrows down, arcs upward a little bit, ends with the ladder bolted into the back wall. When you get to the top, it's a wooden ceiling that you know now is a trapdoor on the other side. And now it's a question of how you're going to get through it.
Does anyone know if anyone else is in the shop with her right now? Has anyone brought familiars to have eyes on the place?
I mean, we could send.
We have
I
like
could-
4.
Victor is going to kind of put his head up against the trap door and tell everybody to keep quiet and try to listen.
Make a perception check.
Uh, 13.
Sounds like wood.
Have Kat take a look inside the shop if she can.
Yeah, I'll send Kat into the shop.
Have
Or at
Kat
least to
make
a
me
window?
stealth check.
I mean, you know. Let me see what Kat's. That is a 19 on die. Yeah.
Okay, I mean that's she rolled 5. So yeah, you wait for an opportune moment, and at one point in the morning, the door opens so she can beat a rug on the outside of the door, and Kat takes the opportune moment to slip into the shop unseen and remains unseen throughout the morning. And no, it's just her. It's just Miriam.
You have a gag and rope, correct?
Hey, when you have to ask that question, you really start to think about the trajectory your life has taken.
It's fine. Do you need me to sign another waiver?
All right, she won't fight you
There aren't
once
enough
we get up
waivers
there.
for this game.
Just do not hurt her when you restrain her.
Yeah. Victor is going to check the door to see if it is locked. I'm assuming.
You're gonna have to
Pick it.
break your way through the door somehow.
We had to
I'll try
pick
and-
it last time.
Yeah, I'm going to try and pick the lock.
Well, the lock will be
Evie
on the
gives it-
other side of the door. You're not gonna be able to access
Oh.
it from here.
So we can't like lift it up. We can't lift it up enough to try and like undo it like we did last time.
Well, last time Evie saw the door from the other side in the shop.
No, we used thieves' tools from this end last time.
We did.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that shouldn't have been possible.
Okay, so we'll figure something else out this time. Evie says, as an aside, over to Edmont and Ekon, under no circumstances is Ruby to be left alone with this woman. Something
No,
weird is
certainly
going
not.
on.
Ekon will nod.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, make a Thieves' Tools check.
Go ahead and add a plus D4 to that for. Oh wait, never. Yeah, do that. I don't need detect stuff anymore.
Be a 17, 18 plus 22.
Okay. Somehow you picked the mechanical latch that's on the wrong side of the door.
we brought a coat hanger, bent it in.
So is the
Listen,
door open?
once in a while, you get to take advantage of a DM mistake. You should just savor the savor it when it happens.
So my spectral thieves tools are able to reach through and undo the lock.
Right.
All right. We'll ease it up a little bit to kind of peek and see what's there.
You get uncanny dodge early as a rogue. I don't know when you get uncanny lockpicking.
Oh, by the way, I just everybody knows because I wrote this down, but I forgot to bring it up because there wasn't a chance. I have my goggles on. I do not have the +1. I don't have the +1 spell focus.
Okay.
Goggles,
I'm going
not
to-
+1.
I'm going to go up into the shop with Victor.
Yeah, me too.
Well, so the first thing, only one person can enter at a time. So
Yeah.
Victor, I'm going to need a stealth check.
That would be a 23.
23. So you manage to get the door open without creaking, and it takes you a moment to orient yourself within the shop. And looking at it from this angle, I mean, the stacks look even more disheveled. You take a few seconds, and you find the corner of the shop where Jeannie's cat is located. And as you listen for a few moments, you can hear Miriam moving around, working somewhere behind the stacks. So you'd be able to slip out now without being noticed.
Victor will slip out and hide.
Is the plan for everybody to come up through the door and then take her?
I think only Ekon needs to go with Victor.
I think we need to lock the front door.
Well, the question was, so is it going to be Ekon and Victor are going to take her and bring her back down? And then Evie's going to go up into the shop?
Is anybody else coming up?
That's the question.
I'm a sneaky boy. I could come up too.
Anybody going
Yeah.
up who plans, go make me an individual stealth check.
Yep. Go ahead and guidance this because it's bad.
Is it possible for Victor to kind of like...
Actually, you know what? Well, no.
Is it possible for Victor to sneak over towards the stairs in case she tries to like run up them?
That's a shame.
Not from your position. I want to see who all gets into the shop first.
Okay.
Because we might not even make
I
it that
believe
far.
that's a 6. Let me double check.
A 6?
That's a 14.
7.
A 7 on your stealth?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Victor, you get up to or you put your back to the stacks. You're kind of orienting yourself, and you're keeping an eye over where the stairs go up into what must be her personal apartments. And you're considering sneaking your way over there when you hear a pile of books just off to your left and behind you tumble to the ground. And spinning around, you see where Ekon has put his hand on the wrong spot and brought a pile of books down, tumbling into the hole. And you hear across the shop, Miriam let out a little shriek. And let's roll some initiative now. Actually, before we roll initiative... Now, I'll just position Ekon at the top of the ladder. I was considering having him fall down into the ladder, but that seems too punitive for a failed stealth check.
Okay.
So the rest of you are still at the base of the ladder under the shop.
Did I? So I didn't get to go up as well because I thought I was going to sneak up as well.
You were after Ekon, but Ekon failed his stealth check.
I rolled a 18 as
Okay.
well. If you please let me go first. It'll help you. Trust me.
Okay.
Oh wait, not Ekon. I'm sorry. I thought you were Edmont. Sorry. Where did Edmont roll?
Hold on, I have to brain. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, Ekon, you get up you're at the top of the ladder, but you reach for what you thought was a floorboard, but was actually a book. And you pulled out the bottom book in a stack, and they all came tumbling down the hole, landing on your companions below. And you hear her give a shriek. towards the other side of the shop. You can't see her because you've got stacks. You've got bookshelves between you and her.
Can I get sight on her with 30 feet of movement?
You can get basically anywhere this side of the shop with 30 feet.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead, and she's going to need to make me a DC 13 Wisdom saving throw as Ekon casts command and orders her to halt.
She fails.
All right.
You order her to halt, so you just want her to not move anywhere?
Halt is she doesn't move and takes no actions for her entire turn.
Okay. Is she able to speak?
Is that an action? That's all the spell says is the target doesn't move and takes no actions.
And then, yeah, she starts to call out who's there, and as soon as she does, she sees you come around and you cast the spell and discharge it, and you can see that she recognizes you, but then she freezes in place. Jeannie, what are you doing on your turn? You can climb up the ladder into the shop with 30 feet of movement.
I'm going to use my action to cast Longstrider on Edmont. You have 10 feet of extra movement, Edmont. And I'm going to climb. So it takes the entire 30 feet to get up the ladder into the shop?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to do that. Just get up into the shop and step to the side so somebody else can climb the ladder. And that is my turn.
Edmund, you're at the base of the ladder. It's going to take you 30 feet of movement to climb into the shop.
Well, with that, I have an extra. Well, then I have 20 feet of movement in addition to that.
Mm-hmm.
So would that allow me to get to the point to where I could to get hands on Miriam?
Is that your intention?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get up on her.
All right. Let's go ahead and grapple her.
So she's not like incapacitated or paralyzed. She's just.
She just takes no actions
Okay,
and doesn't move.
Make a strength athletics roll for grapple. You got to beat a 3.
The 9.
The 9 beats
The
a
9.
3.
Yep.
9 beats a 3. I feel like we're bullying Commoner.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're bullying. That's exactly what you're doing. Do you have any
And
more
then-
movement?
I have however much it took me to get how much did it take me to get across the shop to her?
20 feet sounds right to me. So you
Okay,
probably used
then-
all your movement to
then-
get up on her.
Yeah. Then okay, yep. I have no more movement after that then.
And
Wait. Can I do this as a? Where are my players? There's my player's handbook. Sorry.
Oh, Step of the Wind?
Yeah. Can I do that? Or did I already take? Or is that an action? That Step of the Wind.
I think it's a bonus action.
It's been a minute since I've looked at monk things.
should be on your character sheet.
No, yeah, it's a bonus action. Yeah. I can bonus action to dash. Yeah, it's been a key point.
Are you gonna
Get her back over to the to the ladder.
So you get
The trap door.
up the ladder using the benefits of Longstrider and cross the shop, put hands on her, restrain her, and drag her back to the top of the ladder.
Yep.
And she's not fighting you, but she's more completely flustered than anything. Caught her completely off guard.
Yep.
So yeah, Victor, before you even know what's really going on, like you see the tumble of books fall, and then Edmont, like a flash, is up out of the hole and drags the librarian back to the top of the ladder. And it's your turn.
So Victor will attempt to move over to the librarian unseen and put a bag over her head.
Now, you're not going to be unseen at this point, because Edmont has brought her back to the top of the ladder. That's how much movement he had.
All right, so there's no way to like sneak around, so Victor won't be seen.
No, as soon as you move from your position, she'll know that you were hiding.
Okay. This is why you bring a mask.
So what are you doing?
So Victor will walk over to her, apologize very graciously, and put a bag over her head.
Okay. You put the bag over her head. And then
Very polite kidnapper.
moving or staying put there.
He will then move back into the shadows.
Okay. That's going to bring us to Evie at the base of the stairs, or at the base of the ladder, rather.
Seems like they have the situation under control. Is there room for me to climb up?
Oh yeah, you can climb up into the shop. No problem.
All right, I will climb up, and I guess at this point I'm just going to start looking around for anything that Ekon was. He suggested that specific criteria for books that would raise his suspicions. Books over 100 years old.
Okay, and
I'm trained in history.
you're not gonna do that in the middle of combat though.
No. That's just what I'm coming up here to do. I don't see any combat action to take right now. The woman seems subdued.
He's going to take a short rest.
Well,
Why is that?
she's surprised on the first round, and she was commanded not to take any actions. Does she like make a saving throw against that command eventually?
It's a single action. It's a one. It's her next action.
Okay.
I guess.
So yeah,
I guess.
assuming Edmont can get her safely down the ladder on his next turn, like yeah, there's no reason to stay on initiative.
You may want to tie her up before you take her down. You're going to kind of yell.
Just tie her hands behind her back and be gentle about it.
Do I have? I didn't have any rope ready.
Is that
This
the plan?
wasn't my.
You guys are gonna secure her hands behind her back, and then Edmont's gonna bring her down this ladder.
Yes.
And so Edmont, by the time you get her to the base of the ladder, she's weeping softly. She has no idea why you're doing this. She thought that when you were in her shop the other day that you were such pleasant people. Evie, you're locking up the shop from the inside, and then you're starting your investigation there.
Yeah.
Make an investigation check at disadvantage because this is a very disorganized shop.
Investigation is not a good stat for me.
Can we do it? Because I was gonna say I was gonna
Who's got
stay
it?
in the shop too.
You can help Evie investigate,
Right.
but it's still
Well-
a disadvantage. So you're just counteracting the disadvantage.
Well, what I mean is, can we have Evie help me? Because I have a +5 to the investigate.
You do that.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So roll one dice.
One dice.
One die.
Big numbers, no whammies.
That's a 1.
Ooh.
So what does that turn into?
Turns into 2 blips.
2 blips to reroll.
That is a 23.
23. Okay.
That's pretty good.
So you guys are going to be spending the next couple of hours in the shop. I'm assuming you close it up from the inside?
Yeah.
You said you were going to
Well,
lock it?
we're also gonna, I guess, check and make sure there's no one else here.
No, the shop was empty. Treble, Eugenia confirmed that already. Just the cat.
Well, we thought it was. We don't. There's nowhere else in the building that someone could be hiding. Like if there were actually a cult here.
Oh, there's a whole apartment upstairs that you've never
Yeah.
been into.
Okay, so I think we should secure that. Just make sure there's nothing waiting to surprise us. Just make sure it's empty. Make sure there's no other ways in and out that we aren't aware of.
So you're going to go up the stairs and check into her apartments?
I feel like that's what we should do just to make sure that we are alone and we're not going to get surprised by someone coming up behind us.
Okay.
We could do that before we start searching. Just
Yeah, Evie's just going to give the place a once over, make sure everything's kosher.
Her living apartments upstairs are even more disorganized than downstairs. Cleanliness is not atop her list of qualifications as a human being. So I mean, you find like a rusty wash basin that hasn't been used in forever, just a pile of just musty clothes that she's apparently living out of, half-eaten meals still sitting on her desk, books absolutely everywhere, and in one corner of the room you do find a small writing table that seems to be put into more order than the rest of the room, if only because it's seen recent use.
Oh, well, I want to check that out then.
Okay.
Is she writing anything interesting? Does it appear she's had
is.
correspondence? Okay.
But you don't understand what is written on the page.
Like I don't understand the language or it's gibberish.
You don't recognize the alphabet.
Okay, I could try comprehend languages?
You could.
Okay, so Evie's going to pull out her house relic, which is a lens, but for her, it's like those multiple pieces of lens, they sort of fit over each other, and they all look like stained glass. And she kind of holds it up to the light and just trying to catch like the right angle, and like she's adjusting all the various lenses until she hopes that the text is going to just start to magically adjust into a form that she can understand. So she's casting comprehend languages.
Okay.
And Does that help me understand it?
It does not.
Very strange. Very strange.
So that.
Do
Do you understand what that result means?
It must mean it's a cipher of some kind.
Correct.
Okay.
But it looks like she was in the middle of writing it. This correspondence. The whole page isn't done being written yet.
Okay, so what kind of roll would it be to solve a cipher? Would that be insight?
That's not a roll you're going to make here.
Okay.
This is something you're going to have to bring and actually work on.
Okay.
So the question is, are you taking this letter?
I feel like we should. It seems like it could be relevant.
Okay. And then the other three of you are bringing the bookseller back up to here, where by the time you return, Ruby and both of the men-at-arms that Jeannie had hired are sitting there. So Ruby actually has a little standing table that they had lowered down for her, and a chair that she's sitting in. And behind her are standing the two guardsmen. When you start marching this weeping woman up the stairs towards her, wearing a bag over her head, with her hands tied behind her back. Why does this shit always happen in my games? Like, it always gets to this point eventually.
I would like to point out this was entirely your idea.
Well, not technically. Technically, it was my idea.
Jeannie's the one who...
Yeah, no, it's absolutely Treble's fault, as lots of things in this game are. God, Treble, why? Why do you talk?
I couldn't
Why do we let you talk?
Think back to previous past lives. Like, this isn't the first time this has happened.
Why do we let Treble talk?
I'm amazing.
And there's an empty chair
Anyway.
in front of the table. And Ruby kind of motions.
Plop her down in there.
Yeah. And she says that she offers apologies that her siblings have treated her so unfairly, and says, "By God, Victor, remove this bag from her head and cut her bindings."
Victor will apologize to the poor woman as he takes the bag off. He's going to slide his daggers out and cut her bindings, and then he's going to stand a few feet behind her, ready in case she tries something.
Okay. And I mean, standing behind her, so you guys are on this section of the platform, right near...
I guess we should probably move ourselves there.
Where you have a rope that goes up. She set a table and chairs, 2 chairs here. So she's sitting in one, Marion, the bookseller, is sitting in the other, and she's got the 2 guardsmen sitting, or standing behind her. There's nowhere for her to go. Cause as long as you got somebody watching the stairs down at this bottleneck, she's not going to make it up the rope. Are the 3 of you staying present for the conversation?
Yes.
Ruby puts it very simply. She says that she knows that this bookseller is a part of a cult called the Hand of Fire. This cult has offered violence to persons of House Veritas, and this is a thing that Ruby cannot abide. She motions to one of the men-at-arms behind her, who steps forward and sets a small lockbox on the table. Ruby puts her hand on it, slides it across the small table towards the bookseller. She says, "There are 300 pieces of silver in that box. You're going to take them. This is going to give my house ownership over your shop and all of its contents. You're going to take that box. You're going to be on a boat tonight, crossing the lake. You're going to put Brennanine behind you. You're going to trouble me and mine no more this day forth." And the woman looking down at the box on the table, and she's rubbing her wrists and looking around at the situation like she doesn't really understand.
Who's Christendom?
What's that?
Victor asks, who's Christendom?
Who's Chrisen?
Yeah, that guy.
And she tells you she doesn't know who she's talking about, but it's extremely obvious that she's lying. She breaks eye contact. She stops fiddling with her wrists as she looks down at her lap. She's trying to avoid looking at Ruby or the box when she tells you that she doesn't know who Kristen is. She doesn't know anybody by that name.
Please,
Victor will take.
Adam, you must give me a reason to make sure that I keep my family from becoming unreasonable.
Victor
I'll kind of
takes a step.
give Victor a bit of a glance at that.
Yeah, Victor takes a step towards her with his dagger still out.
Ruby's, for the first time, Ruby does not give Victor a look of disapproval. She does look at Victor's dagger and then meets Victor's eyes and turns back to the woman and says, I'm not interested in discussing alternatives. I'm interested in you taking this very generous offer I'm giving you for your property. And the woman looks at the box, and she's obviously terrified. And she says, "It's not mine to sell. I don't hold the deed to the land."
And who does?
Go on.
She rattles off the name of her landlord, and again, she's completely lying. This person either doesn't exist or it's a name that she's familiar with that she's trying to tell you is her landlord.
Victor will take another step closer and put his hand gently on her back, or on her shoulder, rather.
Okay, make an intimidation check.
That would be a 16.
16. She blurts out that Kristen owns the shop. He
Where
holds
can we
the
find
deed.
him?
Where can you
Okay.
find him?
Yeah.
She shakes her head. He's out of the city. He can't know I've ever spoken to you. Please, we need to.
Oh, we can keep it a secret, but you're going to tell us everything you know about him. Everything. And he'll give her shoulder a little squeeze.
She doesn't know that much. Kristen is. She describes him as a sorcerer. Describes him as wielding fire magic. And he operates a cell of the Hand of Fire out of Nornir. Nornir is the capital of Mendelin. Here, let me bring up the map.
Victor will ask what he looks like as well.
So Nornir is way down south. It is the second largest city in the Republic. And is probably, it might even be the wealthiest, because it does considerable foreign trade that Brennanine doesn't have access to. A lot of the foreign goods that come into the Republic from across the sea come through Nornir first.
And what does Kristen look like?
She gives you a description of him, and by this point, she's either heavily indoctrinated or she's deeply in love with this man. And you can't tell which.
Does she mention red eyelids and tattoos?
No, she does not.
Damn, I guess that means we didn't kill him then.
The three of you who are present, go ahead and make individual insight checks. At one point, I'm just going to save this table because I keep having to load it back up with the Fog of War intact.
That's just
15.
I got a 15. What does Victor have?
Victor's got like a 5, I think.
Edmont. Listening to her, she doesn't describe the tattoos that you saw on the man that you fought here yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And at first you're thinking that, oh, we must have fought Kristen, or Kristen must have the same kind of tattoos. This is a lie of omission. But watching her, you can tell that it isn't. You don't think she has any knowledge that this man that you fought was ever down here. This seems like something that was put into place by somebody above her pay grade. You really start to get the impression that her job is to just be an expendable face to hold this shop that they can operate out of in Brennanine.
Okay.
Ruby looks at Victor and Edmont standing there, and asks if your curiosity has been sated.
It has, Ruby.
Well, let's consider. We have a bookseller who has been operating a front for a terrorist cell.
And at the mention of it, I mean, her head sinks and she begins to weep again. So what else do you press her for?
Does she know any more information about this cell, or does she have any communication with the cell? Or where does she receive her orders? How do they operate? How do they get messages to her?
Kristen visits her and does stuff sometimes. That's about the extent that she tells you.
And how long has this been going on for?
She was placed in operation of the shop several years ago. That was confirmed by you when you first came into the neighborhood and started poking around local businesses.
And when was she recruited by Kristen? And what was the method of recruitment?
She wasn't. She was born into this cult. She tells you that her parents were members in Nornir and that she was relocated here to help with Kristen's current operation, which she doesn't know anything about.
Well, Ruby, it seems we actually have two options here. We could let her take the money and run, or we could let her stay and tell us everything that she might come across.
Ruby asks Edmont and Ekon what they think. Do you feel that this woman still has more to tell you? Edmont, you absolutely don't. You think she's just a patsy.
I think once this Kristen gets wind of the fact that we're onto her, he's going to cut her loose in some form or another.
Ekon thinks for a second and says, well, I think that she's a terrible liar, and I think that if we were to try and place her there, undue harm might come to her, and at this he looks directly at both of the guards.
Ruby says we wouldn't want any harm to come to this poor woman. In fact, I very much believe you've been a victim in all this. More's the better to take this considerable gift, start a new life somewhere outside of the city where you can put all of these concerns behind you. She says that her men will see her safely to the shore, and at that point, if she desires it, with her silver, to take her into their service, to take her even farther, she leaves that to her discretion. And the woman starts to kind of blurt out about how she doesn't know where she'll go, or what she'll do, or how it's not her shop to sell, but Ruby's just not interested in hearing any of that. And eventually
isn't particularly interested either.
Yeah, and eventually she does kind of sheepishly take the box in both hands, and Ruby shows her how to open it, and she undoes the latch, and it's filled with silver.
We'll give you leave to collect your personal effects.
Oh,
Ruby disagrees. She says with that much silver, she can buy anything she'll need on the road.
Fair enough.
So her plan is to keep her down here until cover of night, at which point these two men-at-arms are going to sneak her back out through the shop and out of the city before anybody even knows.
Okay.
So did any of you make any motion to stop? For now, these two men-at-arms are going to secure her in another part of this cave until tonight.
Victor will give her shoulder another squeeze and kind of look down at her. He'll bend over to look into her eyes and say, "It goes without saying that you will never tell anyone about this."
She shakes her head vigorously.
No, that sounds like a great idea, and Ekon moves as if he is going to stay down here with her.
Okay.
Just in case another cultist shows up.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay with her too.
After the men escort her away, before... So Ekon, you're not going with the men-at-arms?
No, I am. I'm staying. I'm sticking to them like a hawk.
Before just when they leave, Ruby asks you to stay behind for a moment.
All right.
bear with me one moment. I have to check my notes for something here. Remember how I told you I have these nice organized notes for this session?
No,
How organized are they?
They're organized, but
us-
they're expansive.
you told us you were going to try and maintain nice organized notes,
I have so far.
and you also
Good luck,
mentioned
Burkred.
that you fail constantly at this.
I'm sorry, she doesn't ask Ekon to stay behind. She asks Victor to stay behind.
Okay.
That's where I got confused. I said the wrong name.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Ekon then.
Okay, so once she has Victor alone back here, she says, I trust you'll be able to handle any legal repercussions that might come our way as to acquiring this property.
I know some people. We should be okay.
She nods and says, I don't need to know the details unless they're important.
And I don't need to know the details of what the guards do to that poor woman.
She says that unless her little sister is a worse person than she expects, she doesn't suspect anything's going to happen to them.
Hopefully it'll work out then.
And she grabs the rope and hoists herself up.
And after she takes off, Victor will go find the other Scooby-Doo gang.
Okay, so Evie and Jeannie are up in the shop doing their investigation for the next few hours, and the rest of you are waiting here until nightfall when these two soldiers or these two men-at-arms, hired goons, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Victor
Minions.
wanted to go back to the shop too.
Yeah.
I want to keep my eye on the goons.
Victor's going to go back to the shop and kind of see what Evie's found.
And these
Yeah,
are
not
these
leaving.
are Jeannie's goons, so as far as goons though,
Yeah.
they're completely trustworthy.
They're
Okay.
minions.
What I want to do is try and just guide them in casual conversation to make sure that they haven't been given orders to kill this woman after she's brought out of the city.
No.
Okay.
In fact,
that was
they have some disagreement between each other because one of them wants to continue on doing the job he's currently doing because he's just this lazy sword for hire that has this sweet job sitting in a basement. The other one is restless and is trying to convince this woman to take him into her service when she gets to the road.
I guess he saw Jeannie come up badly burned. Would be my first implication of that.
No, actually, it's the other one that was on duty when Jeannie
okay.
burned.
He's just bored.
Yeah, he's just restless. He's a younger man.
Okay.
He doesn't have.
I mean, I'll just say we can hire another guard if Air's calling for you is somewhere outside of this city.
And he kind of tuts at that. So I don't know about Air's calling, but I wouldn't mind a few pieces of that silver and some action on the road. He taps his sword hilt. He's just eager to get out of town.
Yeah.
Up in the
You heard-
shop with his 23 investigation.
Uh-huh.
Sounded really excited there.
You
High
very
number.
pointedly don't find anything in the stacks that is incriminating. You do find, searching in the upstairs apartments, all of which Ruby apparently owns now. You do find in the fireplace a curl of parchment that hadn't burned all the way. It looks like it was just tossed onto the embers and didn't catch. And it's a fragment of another part of the cipher that Evie found. It looks like it's an older piece of correspondence that was supposed to be burned, but it wasn't done with much care. Absent-mindedly tossed into the fire after it had already died for the night. As far as the books themselves, it really looks like somebody just established this bookseller's shop as a front and was not really interested in doing business in the buying or selling of books. So most of what's here is actually worthless.
I'm sure all the local collectors have picked the place clean with exchange deals like I did.
That, or like a lot of collectors just saw this as an opportunity to get rid of a bunch of
Yeah.
stock that they weren't interested, had no value. I mean, all books have some value, so it's definitely the whole store itself is worth more than the 300 silver that Ruby put down. But there's no way that this woman knew that.
Is there? I mean, she flashed a lot of money earlier. Did we find any money?
Oh, yeah, you find a lockbox up in her room that has considerably more than 300 silver in it.
Yeah.
Victor is going to try and search for any sort of secret or hidden openings in her apartment.
No, nothing of the sort.
I'm gonna take the lockbox and we'll take Evie. We'll get Evie to get to the correspondence she found, and I'll get the piece of correspondence I found.
And as far as her personal effects, just her meager wardrobe.
Are there anything lying around that looks like it might belong to a man?
No. She looks to be the only person living here.
I'm gonna whistle for Cat and then say, "Cat, stay here and let us know if anybody enters the place."
Okay.
And then we're gonna lock the front door, shutter all the windows, and go back through the bottom.
And we'll take our break there. And as far as you know, this woman is safely escorted out of the city, and no harm ever came to her, and she lived happily ever after.
She lives on the farm with that one guy from Flumph of the Wild.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and get your coffee, get your bagel. We'll reconvene at about 4:45.